Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Neil, for the great and brilliant presentation that you gave. So hopefully you all can see the slides. So my name is Luis Cunha. Yeah, so I've been working for the last years on the business, on the client side, and actually 5G it's an era. So we are at the 5G era right now. Okay, and and all the 5G. Being a business enabler, it's also a challenge for any security team. So actually, when we look at the 5G, it's a move from connecting people to connecting things. Okay, so 5G and maybe I'm going through some of the things that Neil went through his presentation. I would say that 5G bases on this on this trinity. Okay, so which is definitely a better mobile broadband, and most reliable and low latency network, and it's the possibility to have this big amount of machines connecting to the same infrastructure. Okay, and this is basically it's the 5G. It's what we call the 5G vision, that is to place the different use cases that are and that will be possible with 5G, and to place them on the correct sides of the trinity. 5G actually it is an enabled economy. Okay, so with 5G 5G should not be viewed as a standalone solution. Okay, so 5G will help to overcome the limitations of the mobile technology, and also the limitations on the fixed technology or the landlines. Okay, 5G used together with other areas like the cloud, the IoT, and the mobile applications will enable a lot of new cases that you can see here on the slides. Example, a real-time broadcast of a Formula One, race with a driver's view and experience that brings and that demands a, high bandwidth and low latency. Mission-critical services like Neil referenced, the autonomous driving, autonomous vehicles, or even the remote surgeries. All right, that demands high reliability on the infrastructure. Okay, so for the clouds, 5G will be available, for the enterprises to connect to various clouds more cheaply, than through the traditional MPLS networks or other fixed technology. Okay, both the the internal and the external users accessing the cloud-based applications from public cellular networks, the bandwidth that is needed for each one of these applications is growing fast. Okay, so there is a need to have a secure, reliable, and high bandwidth wireless network. The IoT adoption. Okay, so the IoT adoption is growing fast. Okay, so we are also in Aptiv. We are seeing more and more enterprises using more than 1,000 IoT connected devices on their IoT deployments. Okay, this is far more than the max number of devices that are supported on the wireless for example, on one access point. Okay, a typical wireless access point. So these restrictions of today's technologies bring challenges that can be addressed by 5G. Okay, like the network slicing, or even the service-based architectures where the company can dedicate different bandwidth across multiple services with MMTC enables to network to support the identity of the IoT deployments. Okay, so looking at these challenges, what about security? And me being a security person, I need to understand the security that IoT that 5G brings us to know. I'm sorry. to know if I should stay with the traditional security model, or if I could embrace what 5G brings us in terms of security. Okay, so knowing the infrastructure and looking at the infrastructure of 5G, okay, definitely these are the key elements. Okay, so 5G introduces this new, if you want to call it the SUKI, okay, which is an enhanced identifier or identity protection. Okay, the known, AKA. It's also enhanced on the 5G. A stronger and better data integrity, as well the encryption algorithms. Okay, there is a much stronger connectivity with the other networks on roaming use cases, for example. Okay, there is definitely a much better home network control, and one thing that is crucial, which is the detection of false base stations or rogue base stations. So what are the 5G, the security challenge? So when we talk about the more things connected over to the 5G, the connection to the cloud being much easier than it is today, we can say that the attack surface increases a lot. Okay, and the attack surface has increased because of the functionality that you have on the edge network. Basically, with the 5G, you are bringing the edge computing, and the edge computing is to bring the computing nearer to the end user, so that we have much more low latency. That's increases the attack surface. Okay, the wide range of devices that are connected to the network, namely the IoT. Okay, and another introduction of, or with the introduction of NFVs and SDNs, that brings a lot of software over to the 5G network that on the 3G and on the 4G was done using physical appliances. That also, increases and brings new security challenge. And then, lastly, it is the security feature deemed as optional. So it is a risk that it is to have a lot of security features that may not be activated by the operators or by the people that are, or by the companies that are implementing 5Gs, just because or trying to reduce the complexity of the 5G itself. Okay, so looking at the 5G and looking at from my side, that is okay. So I am securing a business. Okay, so how risky, how far can I use the 5G from a security perspective? Okay, so actually, what I try to what we try to look at is doing basically a threat modeling processes. And to do the threat modeling process, it is to know what are the assets, what are the adversaries, and what are the threats. Looking at the 5G, network. All right. So for the assets, this is typical. On the user side, you have the user equipment and the user identity, or the device identity, as we can have both. We have the user session and the application data. Okay, as well the APIs. On the networking side, we have the RAN, so the radio access network, the core network, the edge computing that was introduced, as well the virtualization which that was also introduced on the 5G technology. Okay, who are the adversaries? So we have both. We have the internals and we have the externals. Okay, so for the internals, we have a rogue, typical rogue administrator, or even a privileged, insider that is able to make, some changes on the configurations. Okay, and then we have what we call the accidental user, all right? That's some mistakes that are done, some errors on the configurations, or even, intentional users. But we also have our, the external adversaries, okay, which are, the state-sponsored actors, the typical cyber criminals, the activists, a competitor. We may have this done by a competitor, okay, or a former authorized user. So someone that's left and the accesses remained active. What are the threats? So the threats of 5G and bringing the 5G together with the business, this is always, looked or at least we do it in Aptiv, is always looking at the, the triad from security, which is the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability. Depending on, the scenario that we are evaluating, one must be, or one can be more important than the other. All right. So autonomous driving, for example, it is the confidentiality and the integrity of the data, namely when you have cars speaking over to the infrastructure or cars talking to cars, so vehicle to vehicle or vehicle to infrastructure, or even, a vehicle talking with other kinds of infrastructure, with the connection with the smart cities, for example. On the industry side, and looking at smart factoring or industry 4.0, definitely that the availability is something that it needs to be considered, all right, and it's very critical, but also the integrity of the data. Okay, so when we are talking about, data, that basically it is the core for any, manufacturing. Integrity, it's something that it is key. So if I want to run from a traditional security, that is to use 5G just as the communications infrastructure, if you want to say, and then on top of that, I use the traditional security, okay, having my connections encrypted and have security, as we know it, all over the place. So maybe this analysis doesn't make sense because I don't need to be worried about the 5G infrastructure because I'm securing over it, okay? And I know that, the security controls that I'm putting in place are, strong and good ones. But what about if I want to lower the costs, to lower the costs and try to use the native security features of 5G and the native features from 5G to help me lower the costs of all the implementations that I have, then that's what I need. That's when I need to look at this, threat modeling and understanding on what are the cases or what will be the threat types that will violate things like the authorization, the confidentiality, integrity. All right. So tampering, for example, will, permit to modify the data or modify the code, and definitely that will put in cause the integrity. Okay, like we have the denial of service IoTs. So if I have massive IoTs connected to the infrastructure, what about if I am able to compromise the IoTs so that I can compromise the infrastructure of where the IoTs are being connected to? Okay, so that's a denial of service that will put in cause the availability that can bring some business impact. Okay, and one of the last, and because we have this vehicle to vehicle or machine to machine communication, and 5G will enable that. Lateral movement is one of the latest threats that was introduced. Okay, that we also need to be aware. Okay, These are, some use cases based on the threats that were listed on the last slides. Okay, so in case of, for example, the radio access network. All right, so we may have this, and with this I tried to bring real use cases and how they can affect or exploit, 5G, putting in cause the business or having business impact. Okay, so in case of the RAN, cyber criminals, okay, having a rogue base station, okay, that will put in cause the confidentiality and the integrity. Okay, and by the way, this is something that we in Aptiv test a lot. Okay, so all these use cases that you are seeing here, it's something that basically we try to go through, try to implement rogue base stations, and so that the product that is developed is also robust to all these use cases. Okay, edge computing. Okay, so edge computing. So if someone is able to exploit the edge computing, okay, so there will be the possibility of, or the risk of, data exfiltration. So we are talking about the confidentiality. Okay, if we go over to the activists, so 5G today, namely on the core network, okay, and with all the virtualization in place, so the communication between the different blocks on the virtualization is done via API, okay, using HTTPS or JSON. If these APIs, or if there is a possibility, or if this API is exploited, okay, so we are talking about, again, it's the confidentiality and the availability of the data that will be in stake here. Okay, as well the same on the core network. Okay, so if we have a rogue admin at the core layer that is able to register and to have one of the network functions, one of the boxes, and basically put it somehow it's difficult. This last use case, it's more difficult to do because the security controls that 5G will have implemented at the network at the core layer is quite high. Okay, but there's always the risk for a rogue admin to be able to stand up, an NFV, one of the virtualizes box, and basically then do lateral movement, okay, and start deploying some Trojans or even malware across that, because remember that all this it is based on software. Okay, this is so after having the threat model in place, okay, there's a risk assessment that is done, okay, because there are some scenarios, like I said. So the last one, okay, it has a very residual risk. It's very low residual risk because it will be very difficult to happen. The probability to happen is quite low. Okay, so looking at the RAN, the inherent risk it is high, but because of the security controls that are in place, namely using the certificate-based authentication, the residual risk it is low. Okay, so there is no need to do any kind of future mitigation. All right, on the edge computing, okay, the inherent risk being moderate, there are and using the controls, namely, the validation of the third parties or even the 2FA or the MFA, okay, so that lowers the risk and not bringing the need to do any kind of future mitigation. When we talk about the APIs, okay, so the APIs are based on software. Okay, so all the controls that we have that we may have in place, the APIs may be one of the biggest or one of the most vulnerable on the full 5G infrastructure. Okay, so this regular vulnerability and regular remediation, it's something that should be in place. That's why we put it that as a residual risk as a medium, and needing future mitigations, saying that regularly we should do vulnerability scans over the APIs that are being used, okay, and with the proper remediation if needed. All right. These are the biggest, the major, threats mitigation controls, if we want to say, and these are the controls that basically will bring the confidence for people to use, from a business perspective, for people to use the 5G infrastructure as a native infrastructure to deploy our businesses directly. Okay, so using the network slicing permits, the segmentation and the isolation of the networks, for example. But 5G itself also permits to have the segmentation between what is the network and the application layer. Okay. The granular access control, the strong authentication, and the endpoint protection. So the certification and the compliance of the equipment that is being deployed across the 5G infrastructure, and the possibility to move to a zero trust architecture approach. Okay, I think this is one of the most important things that will permit to bring the confidence to use 5G. If you are, and this is my last slide, if you are interested, so ENISA brings a very, very, very good document that someone that is trying to understand if we should use 5G and all the 5G security controls directly. Then ENISA, the threat landscape for the 5G networks is a very, very good and very easy to read documents that covers a lot of use cases, okay, and covers all, a lot of threats that are out there today, and how the threats are, being addressed or being addressed by the 5G, and also if they have more or less risk when running on a 5G network. Okay, let me finish with this from an end user, from a business customer perspective, and now stepping off of the more the operators, more the infrastructure sides. If I want to connect all my businesses, I need to understand, the middle part, how secure it is. Okay, so today we are still going through the traditional security models. Okay, like I said in the beginning, which is not to trust the infrastructure, and basically to have over the network layer or over the infrastructure layer all the security controls that we need, from the identity protection, the encryptions, the authentication methods, so everything that the firewalling, so that everything that on the security world. 5G somehow is trying to bring the confidence over to the business. So basically saying you can, step out and you can start, getting the confidence and working together with us, because we'll be able to supply all that to you. You don't need to worry about it, because we'll be able to give you all that. If you have a business that needs high reliability and another business that needs high bandwidth, we'll be able to provide that privately. One won't touch the other, directly using the 5G network. So we don't need you to go and set up the typical, business to business or VPN connections or encrypted links just to separate and to make sure that your business is secure. We can provide that to you. So somehow it is a journey. It is a journey to start, using the 5G, and the way that 5G will permit to move forward, to move faster, and to move more secure in the future.
So since it is difficult to prevent rogue admins from standing up to rogue base stations, what administrative controls are being put in place to detect and respond to these events? I don't know who wants to go first in that one. I can
start by those. I think that 5G will be a lot, again, based on this trustness, right? And so 5G, it's like a very modular infrastructure, and it's about creating the trustness between the different models. All right, and what we have been seeing is that the best from the previous 4G networks, for example, has been updated, has been enhanced. We are talking about, for example, new things like the SUKI, for example, okay, to encrypt the identity of the end user of the famous IMSI. Okay, so that's one of the features. The second is the enhanced ATA, the use of certificates, so that when each one of the modules is speak to each other, there's a trust. Okay, there's an handshake that happens, and one will trust the other. This brings a much more difficult scenario for rogue, namely the rogue RANs, okay, to show appear, to show up. Now, there are always, and looking at the roamings, for example, and I'm going to give the use case of the roaming, all right, that the hackers, they always look for the weakest point. So if I want to target a certain home network, and for me it's easier to stand up a rogue base station on some kind of a visitor network, okay, I'll try to do like that. But even that, 5G brings new security proxies to build the trust between both the networks. So I think that it will be difficult, but hackers always find the way to do things. So we need to be careful and conscious and constantly monitoring.
So how do you see the role of AI to manage and parse what could be extraordinary volumes of cybersecurity traffic flowing from a 5G implementation? Currently, AI does not appear to be ready. What are your thoughts?
No, I want so yeah. So definitely things like AI and machine learning. It's perfectly usable on these scenarios, on these use cases. All right. So 5G, and I'm telling you this because it's something that we use today on our traditional security and a way to be proactive. So that definitely it is something that can be used, and I think that will be used on the 5G world if we want to go and have our use cases on 5G networks without and using the native security from 5G. But definitely that the amount of traffic, and when we look at the amount of IoT connected, or even future vehicles and other smart cities and other things that will be connected, definitely it will be a challenge for the AI and machine learning platforms.
For Luis, are Aptiv looking at a MPN private 5G networks for their manufacturing plants?
It is a use case that it's over the table. Of course it is. All right. So when we look at the traditional, mobile technologies, used inside the plants, 4G is something that cannot be used, or it's difficult to use. So people tend to use the normal approach of wireless LANs. The wireless LANs have the limitation of 250 devices per access point. So the result is, if you want to have massive things connected in a factory, in a future factory, basically it means that you have a very complex, wireless network. So why not? If this is a trustable and secure infrastructure and technology, so why not, instead of having this massive infrastructure, wireless infrastructure, why not use the native network slicing, okay, and bringing the edge computing nearer to the factory, okay, and then use 5G to connect everything that is within the factory. So the answer is yes, it is something that definitely we are looking at.